Danielle Addict.
Hey, Danielle.
Hey, Danielle.
So you're recording this?
Yeah.
Oh, God. Anyway, I'm really Danielle Addict.
Hey, Danielle.
Number one, I just want to say thank you. I'm incredibly grateful and honored to be here. I'm very honored and grateful to be here. Can you hear me now? Oh, yeah.
It's not working.
It's not working?
They turned it off.
I'm very grateful to be here. And I had no idea this was a woman's rap. So that's something that completely took me by surprise. The topic that I was given was courage to change. And that was one of the biggest stumbling blocks for me when I first got clean. Little did I know, I had no idea when I came to the rooms of Narcotics Anonymous that it's about change. And when they say you only have to change one thing,
Right.
everything. And I had no idea. And this is really going to be hard for me because I'm a quiet person by nature and I have to shout, So just bear with me. So the topic is courage to change. So when I came in, I'll just give some background about, I'm from New York City originally, and I grew up in Manhattan. I come from a middle-class family, very strict, old-school, traditional values, and I won't get into war stories, but I became a very hardcore drug addict in the streets in the 70s and 80s for many years. I got clean in 2001, a few days after 9/11 happened. And that was one of my first spiritual awakenings because what happened, I got clean September 4th, and 5 days later, when the World Trade Centers dropped, and I was walking through the street, and I realized I didn't have to use that day. I realized, wow, I can fight for my country today. The world is falling apart, but I can stand tall and be proud of who I am today because I'm clean and I don't have to use.
That's right.
And one of the most amazing things was I ran into one of my friends that I used to run with, and he was sick as a dog. And he was he couldn't go cop anywhere. And I remember all the trains were down. We had to cross the bridges to get everywhere. And I was walking across the bridge to go home, feeling serene. I was sick, but I was serene. The obsession had been lifted. And it's because of these rooms and the God of my understanding that brought me here. And I'll never forget, I got on my knees. I was really, really sick. Right before I got clean, I was in a very violent relationship. I was married and violent both ways. I had broken ribs, and I remember I'd never prayed my entire life, and I got in front of a little effigy of just Jesus. I'm not getting into religion, but I got in front of this some impulse maybe, get in front of a little effigy of Jesus right around Easter, and I prayed. I was like, please help. And a few days later, I ran into somebody, just a random person on the street that I hadn't seen for years, and she brought me to my first Narcotics Anonymous meeting in Jackson Heights, New York, which is far away from where I lived, and it was very far away from the people that I knew at that time. But I went there, I felt very out of it, disorienting, and people welcomed me. They welcomed me with open arms. And nobody had shown any interest in befriending me or wanting to know me at all for many, many years, except for the people I used with and the cop man, And so when I got clean, and I remember I went to my first, I got clean in Western Queens area, and what happened, it started out with a coffee commitment, and they have a saying in Narcotics Anonymous, the coffee will get you clean. I don't know, nowadays I'm seeing a lot of things have changed in the fellowship, and I'm not happy about it. I don't like the fact they're making very light of the fact coffee now. I hear people saying that, we don't need coffee, they don't need this. And when I got clean, it was coffee, cookies, everything. And that attracted a lot of people. People were coming in sick and hungry. I see people coming around with cars and gold chains nowadays. Back when I got clean, everybody was broke. So it's just a very different fellowship now because we were all broke. So we came into the room. People were happy to have coffee. People were happy to have cookies. And I still take that commitment very seriously. So when I meet when I meet a newcomer, I say, get on the coffee, because
Yes.
that commitment got me clean.
That's right.
You know, and I remember it was very different, you know, because they kind of ordered us around back then, and it was kind of like, it wasn't so much the sit the fuck down, shut the fuck, it wasn't like that. It was more like take the cotton out of your ears and put it in your mouth. If we know anything about using, we'll ask you. But for now, get in service, call your sponsor, do a 90 and 90, keep coming back and don't use. And that was it. That's all I knew. That's all I had to do. I just kept coming back. I did my 90. I did like a 180. I did so many meetings back to back, back to back. I couldn't hold a job. I depended on every government help known to man at that time, like a typical dope fiend, you know. And like, so but I had time to make lots of meetings. I got a boyfriend early in recovery. I moved in with him. You know, I just shacked up. I just saw a guy that I liked, and he had a car, and I was like, that's the man for me. And somehow, I suckered this guy into letting me move in with him. So I moved in with this dude, and I got away from my husband at the time, and got a divorce, and which was good. I was able to divorce him in the courts, and just practically for free, because it was. But I won't get into all that. But so I moved in with him, and I was making meetings, and doing service. And, you know, I want to say, like, courage changes the topic. And I think the reason why that's such a significant, topic is because that's the first step that we take towards a less self-centered, selfish way of life. Because this disease is about self-centeredness. It's about, you know, it's all about me, I'm a victim, you know, fuck society, you know, life sucks, you know. That was my motto. I blamed everybody but me for my predicament. And little did I know that regardless of what my circumstances were, my drug addiction was on me, and nobody gave a flying, can I curse a little bit? Nobody gave a flying fuck. Okay, that I was a drug addict and I couldn't stay clean, and I had all these issues that nobody understood, because I had a unique type of a background, and I was so different from other addicts, and I came up a certain way, and these other addicts, they don't understand because they're from a different, they have a more stereotypical, you know, this and that. It was just a very pathetic way of looking at life, and I realized that was part of my spiritual awakening, and the courage to change was knowing that, you know, it says we do recover, like, I too could get clean, and this is a disease. I totally believe in the disease concept of addiction. I 100%, if you get down with that concept of disease, it's on. It's like you'll make it. Like, but as long as you think play the victim, like you'll never make it. You just have to say it's on me. So I took responsibility for my disease, and I got involved in service. And they threw me into area service very early on, and it was very intimidating. But I gotta be honest. Like, I know, like, when I was using, I went to a lot. Like, they would send me to these like outpatient clinics, therapy. You know, I try. You know, in the literature it talks about you know, psychiatrists, religion, and all that. And I tried all that stuff, and it didn't work. And you know, getting involved in service, so like, in other words, a lot of that stuff involved like talking about myself, and the thing about service is that it forces us to like be there for others, and like keep the doors open, and to carry the message, and to also study the traditions. The traditions in Narcotics Anonymous are very important. Yes. Traditions are like the backbone of the fellowship, and they say, you know, if the steps keep you from committing suicide, the traditions keep us from committing homicide, because we're liable to kill each other, you know, with our attitudes and behaviors. So the traditions keep us in line. And so the service was very important. It was more important for me early on than writing on steps, because I was so confused and deluded about myself and life that for a while it was just about service and going to meetings. When my head eventually cleared up, I started getting into step work. Now, with my situation was that I always thought that because I grew up middle class, that for me it was like, okay, so all I got to do now, I stopped using, right? And my parents, they gave me a good, strict upbringing with good values. So all I have to do is just not use. I'll go back to school, I'll get a job, and I'll be fine, and I'll be like a productive member of society, and I'm cool. Little did I know, how much I had internalized the behaviors, the attitudes of the street life. And not only that, prior to the street life, the attitudes and behaviors I had from childhood and some of the influences, and how really fucked up I was as a human being, and how the disease, it doesn't discriminate. It manifests itself in numerous ways in all different types of individuals. And that's why, it's very, very important that we, welcome each other, and that we don't try to separate one another from the fellowship due to differences in background and so on and so forth. And so I had to really get down to the fact that I was rebellious by nature, and it was in my mentality to be kind of a misfit and to be rebellious towards authority figures. And I had no idea that was who I was as a person. I thought the drugs made me that way, where in reality, I used and I got interested in, like I got into the punk rock era back in the 70s, and I was like hanging out with these musicians who are all like lowlifes, right? And I could have gone to college, I could have, listen, I would sooner hang out in the street corner, like, figure this, who in their right mind would rather hang out in the street corner than go to college? Mm-hmm. Right. Like, what kind of nonsense? Now, you have no idea how many, especially counselors, would say they sit behind their desk, like this. Mm-hmm. Right? They would like, now listen, we're going to tell you about the street life, young lady. I'd be like, listen, I've already been there. You don't have to tell me anything. It's like, you don't understand. I don't know what's wrong with me. I could not understand what was wrong with me. And they would sit there and like judge and look at with contempt. And that's why I'm so grateful for the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous, because I didn't have to really figure out why. I just had to know how. And it doesn't really matter why. That's a lot of Freudian shit anyway, like, you know what I mean? No, like, all I need to know is, like, how do I stay clean, and how do I do the right thing, and how do I get a God in my life and reach out to a newcomer. And, I've done a lot of step writing, and I really learned, like, over time, that some things change and some things never change. And when it comes to character defects, the biggest courage, I guess I can, to change is just to realize that every day is like a reprieve, and any day that I don't use drugs and I don't do some crazy shit is a gift. It's a gift. There are so many times where in my life, and even with a career, with a good paycheck, with a great fiance, there are times when the thoughts, the ideas that go through my head are so warped and disgusting. It's like I don't even understand why I'm like this. I don't know where it comes from, but it just is. It's my disease, And the idea for me, the idea of fun is like for instance, like just recently I was like driving. I went through this like phase where I was driving, and I just felt like playing chicken with the oncoming cars. Like, who thinks? Why? Why would I?
Exactly.
Let me just try to, for no reason. And thank God there were no passengers. But I mean, it's just the idea. Like, it's a cunning, baffling, and insidious. And I think for me it was really important that I get over a lot of the rebelliousness, because. I depended on a government check for a while, and then eventually I started working, and I decided to go back to school. And I remember I went to visit my father. He had just gotten a pacemaker put in, and I went to visit him in the hospital. And this was back in New York when I live in PA now, but this was in New York. And I went to visit him, and he said to me, I was waitressing at the time, and he said to me, "Why don't you become a nurse? You always really liked science, and you always really, you were good at school, and I don't see, why don't you just become a nurse, And I was like, what are you talking about? Are you crazy? I'm so shot out, I'm so like, and I'm still shot out, but I have a mind that's like made for certain types of things. And the beauty of the step work is that it's like peeling it's like a flower in the literature. we're like a flower blooming in the sun, or, and it's true. We come in here, we do step work, and we find out who we truly are. And the courage to change for me, a lot of it was being willing to venture out into the unknown and go back to school. And thinking I was really stupid. I thought I was really stupid. I thought I was shot out. And I went back to school. And there's some subjects I really suck at, but when it comes to sciences, I'm good at sciences. Go figure. Everybody has a strength. And I got into biology, and it was just like everything just started coming back to me. And I applied to nursing school, and I got into nursing school, and now I'm an RN because of Narcotics Anonymous. If it was not, if it wasn't for the step work and a sponsor, I would not be a nurse today. I might be clean, I might have a job, I would not be a nurse. And I say this because there's a discipline that we have in Narcotics Anonymous. Yes. We show up for our commitments. We show up for the newcomer. We show up for the sick and suffering addict. We show up for area. We show up for one another. And again, it's not about me. I matter. I got clean for me. I'm not going to kid anybody here and say, I'm here just for you. No, I'm here for me. I'm here for me. I stay clean by helping you. Right. And you help me. And we help each other. And that's the beauty of Narcotics Anonymous. And where else can you find such characters, right? You know what I mean? Like, it's never a dull moment in Narcotics Anonymous. We had so much fun, especially activities. If you're a newcomer, get involved in activities. That's like the best commitment, because that's when we do the events and the dances. And I must have gone to, because I used to love nightclubbing, and like addicts love to go out and party. We'd be putting on events like constantly, like before the COVID. It just seemed like every other week. Yeah, we got an event, just for an excuse to party without drugs, and just be able to have fun and dance and have a good time. And we had so much fun. Early recovery, like I get really nostalgic because we had a lot of fun. And that's what's great about service. When you get involved in service, people get to know you, right? And then you just get to be a part of, and it's like being a part of an exclusive club that nobody else wants to belong to, but still, But yeah, it's like it's a really great way to like get to know people, and I'm really grateful. And so when I went back to school, I had to get in touch with a lot of attitudes because a lot of the people in the sciences are very snotty. Like there's some real snotty attitudes, and being in the workforce was hard in the beginning. But Narcotics Anonymous, we learn a sense of teamwork, right? Because we have to work together, and our traditions keep us together, our unity. And I took a lot of that into my job, my career, and working with other members of the healthcare team. And it's amazing how you can take what we learn here out into the quote-unquote real world where the normal quote-unquote people are, and use it to one's benefit. And another thing that was really important was like the courage to change was being able to show up for my family and who I'd abandoned for many years. And I was barely on speaking terms with them. And when both of my parents got ill, I was there I had to be for them as well. And that was a tremendous gift. I am so grateful, be so grateful that you're there for them. I can't even imagine what it would have been like if they had died and I was still out there. Thank God, they passed away a few years back. Thank God I was clean when they passed away. And while they were sick, I was able to show up for them and be there and participate in their care. And being a responsible, productive member of society, and not be broke, not be miserable, not making excuses for not being there for them was one of the best gifts I could have gotten in recovery, was being able to show up. And just being there for, and another thing was really big when I moved out to PA, and I never had kids, and when I had to get involved in, I had a fiance that I moved out, when I moved to PA, he passed away a couple years ago, and getting involved with his kids and helping raise them and getting involved with grandkids and being involved in their life. And when I was using, like the idea, this sounds really harsh, but I would look at men with children. I would think like they were just baggage. I had a very nasty attitude about kids, and a lot of it was just a lot of pain over not being able to have kids of my own.
Right.
And through step work, I was able to get over. I was able to work through a lot of the issues over the void of never having children. Because now I feel envy towards people who reunite with their kids and they have their kids in their life, and that was a tremendous hurt piece. When I got clean, when I realized, wow, there's nobody to carry on my legacy, so to speak,
Right.
But I have Narcotics Anonymous. Narcotics Anonymous is my family,
Yes.
and I have my fiance, in my family. I have friends, and I have my healthcare team as my family. But Narcotics Anonymous is the family that helped me get my life back, and I'm indebted to the fellowship. The fellowship, all you got to do is like show up. It's not, there's no miracle, it's no miracle cure. There's no easy way here. Addicts go for the easy way. We always want the easy solution. And it really is about kind of like sucking it up and just writing your steps and just getting through each day and not using and not acting out and not, trying to beat the crap out of somebody or like, or whatever, or rob someone, all the crazy shit that we did when we were out there, and, or quit jobs, and that's another thing. I'm going to wrap it up really soon because it's really hard for me to speak at this volume. But I managed to hold on to jobs in recovery. That's a miracle. Like not like flipping out, walking out, crying, carrying on, making a scene. That's a really big thing for me. I was a real dramatic nut when I was using, and I'm really grateful for the steps. Mm-hmm. The steps are the solution. That's what got me. Not a psychiatrist, not like whatever. But and I just want to say thanks a lot. I'm very grateful, and I'm sorry I don't speak that loud, but I hope somebody got something out of my message. Thanks for letting me share.